Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video for Simon Says Stamp. Today, this video is actually part of a blog hop for the one-of-a-kind release they're just doing, and I'm going to be using two new stamps, two new products, a stamp and a die, and they are called the Bouquet of Thanks. And even though there's like a ton of amazing stuff in there, I'm always drawn straight to the florals. So I'm using some Eclipse masking paper. I originally thought I was going to do a one-layer card, and then I ended up switching it up, but I didn't want to cut that part out of the video in case you wanted to do a one-layer card. I wanted to show you how I did it. So I put the Eclipse masking paper over just a regular piece of cardstock, and then I'm going to go ahead and stamp my flowers right on top of it. This is so that I can line up my die. You could die cut them without stamping them, but then me personally, I just have a really hard time lining it up to cover my stamped image. So I'm going to hold that in place with some washi tape. I'm going to take it off screen and run it through my Big Shot. And then here, because this is adhesive paper, the masking paper does have adhesive on the back, it almost kind of becomes one die cut. But then you just kind of have to play around with it till you find that one corner that you can get up. This took me a little bit longer than it normally does because I have dark nail polish on, and I was trying not to get any rubbing or anything to come off on that white cardstock in case I did want to use it again. So now I'm going to, this is just Nina, I think it's 80-pound cardstock, and I'm going to stamp out my scene. So I'm going to stamp out the bouquet one time, and then I am going to use that mask that we just created. Now, the mask does have a white edge around it, which means the things that I stamp over it won't be right up against it. But this wasn't anything that I felt like I couldn't take care of with just a Copic Safe writing pen myself to just connect those lines. If you don't think that you can do that, you might be better off fussy cutting it, but the dyeing, cutting just takes such less time that if I can get away with it, I would prefer to do it that way. So then I'm just going to stamp out the same flower bouquet just a couple of more times. I was going for kind of like a field of flowers versus just one bouquet. So now that I have all those stamped out, I'm going to remove the mask. And you can see it's not too terrible how far apart the black line is. I really wanted a rainbow. I just was really feeling like a rainbow. It's been a long week. I am tired. And I just was really feeling like something bright and fun, but I was also feeling really, really tired. So I decided that I was going to reverse the way that I would normally do it. Instead of pulling out all of these Copics to do a rainbow colored flower, I thought that I would do a rainbow colored background with distress inks, which is so much easier and faster. Oh my goodness, so much faster. And then maybe do white flowers on top of that. So I'm putting down basically like 2 spots of each color. I'm trying to pay attention to which ones won't mix well. Like I'm trying not to put my purple next to my yellow, my blue next to my orange. Sometimes it happens. It usually isn't that big of a deal. To break up some of that color in the background, I'm just using a number 2 round brush and a little bit of water to kind of just spatter some on. I wasn't working on watercolor paper, so I tried not to put down too much water, just enough to pick up that color and make it a bit more interesting. To color my flowers white, I pulled out my cool grays. You can basically use any of the grays that you would like. I just prefer the cool ones, but again, this will work with any of them. So I'm putting down the color where I want it to be the darkest. When you are coloring an object white, you're basically just adding the shadows in. So you want to make sure that you leave a good amount of white. The object is supposed to be white. So I typically, when I first started coloring anything white, I started with a C1 and a C3, and for my darkest shadows, I might do a C5. Very minimal amount of 5. As I've done it multiple times and practiced, I'm a little bit more comfortable with bringing in like a C7. But you might not be there yet, and that's totally okay, because there's sometimes even now that I'm not. So this is through the 5. I'm going to add a little bit of the 7 just to the very back petal in the center. And this is because that's where it would be the darkest, but again, I still want it to be up here white. Now, I'm sure you're probably thinking, looks pretty gray right now, Kelly. And you would be correct. It does. But once we get it cut out and put on that background, it will look more white. A couple of things that you can do for your white flowers to kind of switch it up. They aren't gray in real life. They reflect colors that are around them. They do naturally have some more colors in them. So I picked out some pastel colors, and I'm just going to add them basically over the gray shading. So this is a super light blue, and you can see it kind of changes the way the flower looks. The other thing that you can do is add in some striations or some shadows toward the top of your flower. So I'm just going to add in a couple of little lines, not anything crazy, just to give the edges of the flower some shape. And for this, I'm only using the C1 and the C3. And I'm just picking out the lines or indentations that would already be there drawn into the stamp set. For these little buds, I also did them white. I picked one side, typically for me it's the left side, to be underneath the other, and then that's where I added the majority of my shading. Also up from where it would be coming out of the actual stem, I added some shading. And then again, I just picked a color for this one. I think it was a violet that I just added a little bit of shading with. For the actual stems, I wanted to match kind of that mowed lawn that's in the background. So I chose a YG03, but then I switched over to the Gs. Because the Gs have a bit more blue in them, they do match that mowed lawn color better. I basically just added a little bit of shading anytime the stems were coming out from underneath something or there was something laying over top of them. I did try to add some up the stalks for the buds. This stamp set is drawn to be very sketchy and kind of very soft, which is a very pretty look. And if you like that, awesome, go with that. I prefer a bold black outline, so that's what I'm doing. I'm re-outlining it, and I just picked whatever the outside edge was because I am going to die cut these, which I did. I ran them through my Big Shot and die cut them, just like I showed you earlier. And I'm going to layer them up. So I know you're probably like, you had a chance to make a 1-layer card and you decided to add layers instead. I know. I just thought that it would be, it would look cool. So the ones in the bottom, I am adhering flat with Tambo Mono Multi-Glue. And this is, because I want them to be in the background, I want the one that's the whole bouquet to be kind of up front and center. So those parts that are hanging off, I'm just going to trim off with my scissors. I'm going to run right down the length of the card there to use that as my straight edge, and then just trim everything else off so that it's all flush to the bottom of the card. And even like right now, even with just these couple little flowers, it looks super cool. I love the way it came out. For this, just to have some differentiation, I'm going to add foam tape to the top. And then for the buds and the stems, I'm going to adhere those flat. And this is just, you know, a way to get a little bit of dimension without having to pop up your entire panel, which can sometimes be a little bit more difficult for mailing. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on. And then again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to trim off the bottom. So originally, I really wanted to use the sentiments from, it's called Big Greetings. And it's one of the new sets, and I love them. I love all of them. I love the font. But because I had so many flowers, it just wouldn't fit. It just wasn't going to happen. So I ended up using a sentiment from the same set, from the Bouquet of Thanks. And I just paired two together, so it says, Hello Friend. And then I added some clear droplets to kind of accent that. I prefer to adhere mine with glossy accents, because then you can still see straight through that clear droplet to the pretty colors below. And then the last thing I did, of course, if you watch any of my videos, you know, is put some clear Wink Castella on all of my flowers. So then that's the whole card, kind of the inverse coloring. I really like the way it came out. I hope that you guys are inspired by it. Thank you so much for joining me. If you want to see the rest of the Simon blog hop, that is linked on my blog. If you're watching on YouTube, it's in the description below. Hope you guys have a wonderful week. I'll catch you on the next video. Bye.